Dani Olmo says he's very confident that Barcelona will be able to register him for the second half of the season after reports emerged suggesting that they need to balance the books to meet La Liga's financial requirements. Jules?
Well, if you remember, it was already a bit of a slightly dodgy one, the way he was registered, because it's only after Christensen's injury, long-term injury, that they were able to find this kind of rule within the rule. That
And then
said,
Gundogan's departure, too.
and the Gundogan's departure. That said that if a player is injured for a certain amount of time, obviously you can sort of replace him by somebody else that take his place in the wage. Tricky. So I'm not surprised by this. I would think that the new kit deal with Nike, very, very lucrative one, should be okay to do it. But I would be a bit worried. I know he says super confident.
It's funny, too, because now that you have the injured guys back, I would argue Dani Olmo probably isn't as central to the plans as he is now, right? Obviously, because you have
He's been playing really well.
No, I know, but Rafinha's playing out of his skin.
Yeah.
You have Gavi. I'm saying it's not like this person's critical, right? I would imagine they'll register him eventually. I hope it doesn't result in them having to lose a player that they would rather not lose, so they can keep Dani Olmo. That's the main thing, and I would also hope that it doesn't turn into something where, because I think if they don't register him, he has to sit out until the summer when then they'll have the Nike deal and whatever, and other things will kick in. So, I would assume they're going to get this done.
Surely. Claudio Ranieri is now in charge at Roma officially, and one thing he needs to do, Gabi, is sort out his defense with the future of Mats Hummels and Mario Hermoso in question.
Yeah, so apparently, there's a story linking Mario Hermoso to Real Madrid because, of course, I think every center. We'll be talking more center backs in Real Madrid in a moment.
Yeah.
I don't know that you need a hybrid left. If there's one position at the back, the only position where they have numbers, it's left back.
Yeah.
So I don't know that. I know he can play center back too, and it's true. He doesn't do it very well. Certainly not in a back four. Hummels, the story was that he's sad because he's hardly played. When he did play,
Hummels be the worst signing in Roma history, considering he's played one. He had one game, scored an own goal.
Okay. So when it comes to Roma's history of terrible signings, I think there's such a long list. I'm not even sure. He's in the top 99, frankly. Okay. Ranieri said, "Oh no, I want to work with Hummels, blah blah blah." I think it's depressing to find yourself in this situation when you consider this guy was playing the Champions League final last year. He's Mats Hummels. It could be the wrong club for him.
Yeah.
Should we bother linking him to Real Madrid since he plays center back?
Yeah, as well, yeah.
Paul Pogba has officially terminated his contract with Juventus. Jules, they'll save themselves some money. In fact, quite a lot of money. But what is he going to do between now and March when his suspension ends?
He's in Miami right now, training on his own.
Inter Miami?
And I think he will train on his own between now and the end of December. And then from January the 1st, he's allowed to train with a club. So that gives him a bit of time to find a club and train between January the 1st, and March the 1st to then be able to play again.
So the issue with this is I saw this too. It just struck me as a little bit unusual in the sense that he needs to be registered. So obviously he's a free agent, so he can join a club anytime. But different leagues have different restrictions about when you can register even free agents, right? So in certain leagues, so in France, like we saw with Rabiot, he could come and join whenever. He's a free agent. In other leagues, you can't do that. You can't always, you can always insert somebody in the squad. So I would hope he would want to sign for a new team before January 31st. And what I'm wondering is if nobody's seen him train, it's got to be tough. And I don't know that going to Miami to train, I would assume he'd come back and maybe somebody would take a look at him, or no?
He might do that. It's only that he lives in Miami. It's only that he's got a house in Miami, and that for the weather, it's better to train there than to train in Turin or Paris.
Paris, yes.
That's the only reason why he's in Miami. I think it's got nothing to do with Inter Miami or anything. It's just the weather. And then, you're right. I still think the name is big enough for him to attract offers, and he will get offers. Ideally, he would like to stay in the top 5 leagues, top European 5 leagues. But all the options are open on the table, Saudi, MLS, anywhere, really. But I think in his mind, it's a competitive team to stay competitive, to go to the 2026 World Cup. So we'll have to see. Real Madrid's search for a central defender continues, as you mentioned it earlier, Gabi. Milan Skriniar is very much available. We said that on Thursday. And now there's talk of Rafa Marin to come back to the team.
This is an interesting one because obviously Rafa Marin is a guy who came through the ranks. He was at Sevilla when he was very young, and then he went to Real Madrid. He was considered pretty highly rated. Last season, I think he was he at Alaves on loan? I think it was. Whatever. He had a very good year.
Yeah.
Napoli spent not insignificant money on him. I mean, 12 million euros. I thought he would stick around at Real Madrid to be like to be the new Jesus Vallejo type, to be like the fourth option.
Yeah.
Real Madrid do have it at compra where they can buy him back. Curious thing is, Napoli acquired him. He's played 0 minutes this year. He played a Coppa Italia game, but 0 minutes in the league. He's been on the bench every time. Obviously, Antonio Conte, clearly not a fan.
No.
He's going to have fewer opportunities as well because Napoli aren't in European football. Look, we're not saying Real Madrid fans, don't get angry at us. They were like, oh, why are you linking us to Rafa Marin and Hermoso and freaks like that? We're Real Madrid. Because the reality is, there's no doubt Real Madrid will either in the summer, maybe in January, spend big on an A-list defender. Yeah. But I think they also need a body now who can be somebody reliable with an upside. I think Rafa Marin might fit that bill, given he's got a history at the club. For me, certainly more so than Skriniar. Skriniar is going to come with high wages, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You got to deal with Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah. It's not, I think this could be an option, an alternative.
Yeah.
It's time. It's Texter time. Jules, the shoe has dropped. Lyon has been provisionally relegated to Ligue 2 for violating financial sustainability rules. Yeah. So first off, what does this actually mean? And what did John Texter have to say about this?
So it means that if they don't find 100 million euros between now and June, they will go down, regardless of how much they finish in the table at the end of this Ligue 1 season.
When you say find 100 million, do you mean could it just be the owner writes a check for 100 million?
Yeah, so it could come from anywhere, really. I think the DNCG will look where it comes from, and that's the problem with that John Textor has with the DNCG, so the French Financial Fair Play, to put it simply, because he said they work differently. They have a system that is not his system. Basically, he wants to be able to have Eagles Group, who also owns Botafogo and the shares in Crystal Palace.
45%.
To basically have the money fluid between all those three entities, and Molenbeek, I guess, but nobody really cares about them. And the DNCG said, no. It's either Lyon's money or Eagles Group money, but we can't have this kind of fluidity and mixing everything together, basically.
You can't triple count the same.
Exactly. But what was funny, Gab, when he left the meeting with the NCG, Textor said, it went great, guys. Lovely people, fantastic, all great. A few minutes later, the statement from the NCG came down to retrogate or to relegate, potentially, Lyon. So then the next day, Textor was like, no, I'm not having this. So he organized a press conference.
2 hours.
2 hours where he spoke so much, basically to say that he's not happy with the system of the NCG. We said that, but also that they have too many players and some will have to go in January, so they will sell. And that's also how they're going to bridge that gap financially. So he said, we're never going to go down. Don't worry, fans. It's okay. We've got this under control, which I'm not sure we believe him.
Yeah, well, there's just two things we're going to say. One is, it's always like this, right? Like the financial people with financial engineering and whatever, they always say the same thing. Say, oh no, look, those nerd bureaucrat bean counters at the financial control bodies, they don't understand our business. They don't understand what we do. It's a bit like when Qatar did their partnership with Paris Saint-Germain. Like, no, it's not a sponsorship. It's an innovative partnership. You can't count it as a sponsorship, whatever. Your job, if you're running a business and these people license you to play in the league, is to meet their requirements. You can't come up and like, oh no, this meets the requirement. You just don't understand it.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No, that's true.
The other thing is, they do have an enormous squad. But I think it's basic supply and demand, which I'm sure Textor understands, that if now you say, we have too many players, we're going to have to sell one of them, you're not going to get full market value because people will know that you're trying to sell these guys. So, yeah, no, I agree with him. They're not going to get relegated. They'll find that 100 million.
But for example, he said, which he would be happy with, he said it's imminent that he sells his 45% share in Crystal Palace. And then he said Botafogo are also going to sell players. So hinting again that the Botafogo sale, that money will come to Lyon, which is exactly what the DNC said. No, you can't just use money from Botafogo letting players go, to move that money to Lyon to cover your debts. It just doesn't work like this.
It's also going to be exactly what Botafogo, I think in Brazil, where he's already... If you're Botafogo fan, you're like, WTF,
where's the money going?
You sell our best players to prop up this other club that you own?
Exactly.
Like, I don't... You know what's amazing about this? You can go on Eagle Football... And I know, okay, yeah, we do make fun of Textor a little bit. Just simply because a lot of what he does, to me, just strikes me as so unreasonable.
That is true.
But if you look in Eagle Football Group, you look at who his advisors are, you look at who is on the board, those are very, very serious people.
Yeah.
And some of them, some not so much. And none of these people ever say a peep, right? And that's what I struggle to understand. I mean, yeah, you've got access to this money, but where are these other investors? What do they think? You know, because it's not just you.
No, that's right.
It's Eagle Football Group.
In a long interview with ESPN, Aitana Bonmati compared the NWSL and the Women's Super League in England with La Liga, and Spain did not come out favorably, Gav.
No, she said that the league in the US, that they're doing things very well in terms of marketing and communication. They want to be the best. Also, the WSL in England, they're both ahead of of La Liga in that respects. And they treat women's football well. They treat it how it deserves. I mean, I don't think there's any question that if you look at not the top, which is Barcelona, but you look at the average in La Liga's, in the Women's Liga, and you compare it to the average in the NWSL, where obviously it's an American league, so it's all geared towards parity, and you look at the average even in the Premier League, where a lot of clubs cross-subsidize, and also, by the way, where they have, is it 12 teams instead of 18 teams or however many there are in La Liga. Oh, sorry, I think they went down to 16. Yeah, those are at a higher standard, but it's a question of economics, and it's a question of parity, it's a question of business models. So Barcelona this season, they've won 10 out of 10. Last season, 129, drew 1. Season before that, 128, drew 1, lost 1. Season before that, 130, drew 0, lost 0. Season before that, 133, drew 0, lost 1. When you have a team that is that dominant, that is so much better resourced than everybody else, if I'm a mid-table club, am I going to put money in just so I can get spanked by Barcelona?
No.
So it gets into, I think, a much more complex argument about what is best for the development of women's football. Is it the NWSL model, which will hopefully be self-sustaining, which is much more geared towards parity? Like I always say,
there's also a long history and legacy and culture of women's football in England and in the US, more than in any other countries, more than in Spain, more than in France. Okay, Scandinavia were at the start really pioneering, but it's true, and Spain can't get at the level of the others because they don't have the same history, and they haven't had the league for so long than the others have.
And yet they have the best players.
Yeah, and they have talent, and they are the best national team.
That's this contradiction. And I don't know. I'd really love to have people look at this. I know it's controversial, but I've talked about it before. Is the right thing a super league for women's football? Where the best teams, the ones that have the resources of Barcelona or Manchester City or Chelsea or Arsenal, play against each other at the very, very highest level. And further down, it becomes viable in terms of offering women opportunities to play and professionalism and all these things that we talk about. Because there's people here who, they can say they're professional, but they're not making a living wage.
No, yes.
Right? And look what happens. And we saw this even here in England with teams like Blackburn, right, who found themselves in that situation. I think people need to have a long, hard conversation about this and get some smart people involved. I think they do have some smart people, certainly in the UEFA women's game, and see where you go forward with this.
Yeah.
Goals from Mayra Ramirez and Guru Wrighton gave late goals, I should say, gave Chelsea a 2-0 home win over Manchester City in a top-of-the-table Women's Super League clash here in England. Jules, they're 2 points clear with a game in hand. Is Sonia getting it done?
I mean, I don't know if she's getting it done, but what a great start for Sonia Bonpastor at Chelsea. And for Chelsea overall, this was a really good game, by the way. Really, really good game. And Bonpastor, 7 wins in 7 games in the WSL, 3 wins in 3 in the Women's Champions League. Outstanding work. I knew she would do well, but I didn't think she would start with 10 in 10. Incredible. Well done to her. She's so good in everything. I love her so much. And she deserves, I think, a lot of praise, like her team and like her players who are really relentless. The quality that they have, the discipline, they don't make mistakes, the decision making is great. I mean, they have an amazing squad to start with, even with the injuries of Sam Kerr, for example, etc. But really, really remarkable. So I just hope that the league stay competitive, but you can see Chelsea running away with it very, very soon too. Andres Iniesta is part of the ownership group that has taken over Helsingør in the Danish third division. Gab, what's this quickie here?
So first of all, we said, I don't know, there's a story on our website. Andres Iniesta is famous.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not Andres Iniesta buys a club. And secondly, it's not Helsingborg, who you may have heard of. It's Helsingør.
So that you have never heard of. I can guarantee you that.
I had heard of it because it was actually owned in part or operated by Jordan Gardner, who's a U.S. investor, who's had interest in Dundalk and other clubs. So Andres Iniesta has a consultancy called NSN, which he set up. And they got money from the Swiss group called Stonevig. I don't know what the hell they are. I'm assuming buying Helsingør does not cost a lot of money, given that they were relegated. So, yeah. They're in the third flight now. They have a Spanish coach. It's fun. I don't know. Again, we get so excited. Look, Andres Iniesta does it. It's just like when Ronaldo, bought the original Ronaldo, bought Valladolid, right? Now, okay. He's not actually taking his life savings and putting them into the club.
It's true.
If this is an aspect that Iniesta wants to explore, how to run a club, how to do this, these are all things that, from a playing perspective, he would have never experienced. So he's looking at that. He's looking at these badges. He's asking himself, I love the game. What can I contribute to the game? I think it's great for him. I don't think it's a bad place to start. But equally, let's not get carried away with this one.